Hi everyone, I'm Justin Paperny and I'm so thankful to help educate you on the best way to prepare not just for sentencing in prison. In fact, our whole team is so grateful to be a resource for you, and we know you're busy. So I want to jump in and hopefully provide a lot of value. And in this video, rather than talk about a lot of good things I did, I'm going to talk about a lot of dumb things I did, and I believe you can learn from the good and bad. I'm in a super good mood today because my dad, the most incredible man in the world, was in the hospital for the last week at UCLA, had a heart surgery. He's been released and he's home. And while I was visiting with him last week at UCLA, he's kind of a quiet man, doesn't talk a lot about my experience through prison. Proud of me, of course, but doesn't talk a whole lot about it. Kind of out of the blue, he said, "Son, it was a really dumb thing that you went to prison." I'm like, where did this come from? It was funny. We're talking about the Dodgers and prison, which he doesn't talk about a whole lot. And he said, "Son, it was a really dumb thing you went to prison." I said, "Dad, that is not the first or the last of the dumb things that I have done in my life." So I was going through during this visit some really dumb things I did in prison. Some he laughed at, some he didn't understand. And about halfway through, he said, "Son, this could be a good video." And that was incredible to me that my dad suggested I film a YouTube video, because till this day, I'm not even sure he watches it, because he still doesn't really like to talk about the fact that his son went to jail. But in honor of my dad, the greatest man I've ever known, I want to film this video, some of the dumbest things I ever did in prison. I'm going to rattle them off, so it's not in any particular order, but I hope that it helps all of you. If you choose to stay to the end of the video, I'm going to go through some books that I'm reading right now, because a YouTube subscriber about to surrender to prison asked me to knock off some books that I'm reading. So here we go. The dumbest things I did in federal prison. Well, it didn't take me long to act stupid or dumb, because about 15 seconds after I surrendered to federal prison, I reached out to try to shake hands with the guard. And he basically looked at me and said, "You're an inmate. We don't shake hands with inmates." So quick tip, don't shake hands with the guards when you surrender to prison. A little embarrassing. I learned quickly. It also didn't take long for me to do my second dumb thing, because I'd only been in prison about 14 hours before I did my second dumb thing, which was engaging in the prison hustle without fully understanding what the prison hustle was, because I was a fool who chose not to prepare for prison, despite a number of articles and information that was out there, including information that my now business partner was writing. Michael was a prolific writer back then, of course. My mom used to send me his articles. I threw them in the trash, didn't read them. If I did, I'd have been better prepared. So to the prison hustle, about 12 hours or 14 hours into my prison term, I realized the mattress they give you is like the size of an iPhone. I hope you have a good back. Like, the mattress was this thin. Hold on, maybe it's... Well, here's Lessons from Prison you can still get for free. So maybe the mattress is... No, it's definitely not 3 books. Hold on. Let me think how thin the mattress was. I feel comfortable saying the mattress was this thin. So a guy came up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, what do you think of the mattress?" I'm like, "That's a joke, right? This mattress sucks." He's like, "Would you like a better mattress?" I'm like, "Sure, that sounds fantastic." He's like, "Great, I'll handle it." Terrific. Thanks, man. So at about midnight that night, he got a tap on my shoulder. A little concerning the first night in jail to get a tap on the shoulder. You don't know what's coming. You've seen stuff sensationalized on television. And I'm like, this isn't great. Taps me on the shoulder. It's dark. Basically says, "Hey, dude, get up." I'm like, "Why?" "I got your mattress." Throws the much thicker mattress down. And like 3 days later, he comes up to me when I'm about to do my first commissary shopping. I think on May 2nd. I surrendered on April 28th, 2008. He's like, "Here's my list." List for what? "List, dude, to get me things in the commissary because I got you a thicker mattress." I'm like, aha, the prison hustle. It exists. It's real. I got him the items in the commissary. Someone then told me correctly, "Hey, dude, you got a mattress that you ain't approved to get. You don't have a bad back. You may be chubby and fat, but it doesn't look like you're disabled. Get rid of that mattress. You're going to be in a lot of trouble." So the second really big thing, dumb thing I did in prison was engage in the prison hustle without fully understanding my environment. Be better than me. Had I been caught, I don't know what would have happened. Could have been a disciplinary infraction. Could have been trouble. Could have been time in the shoe where I come out looking like a ghost. Not cool. I'm dumb. Be better than me. A third thing I did on the phone was, a third dumb thing I did in prison was talking exceptionally loud on the phone. So you walk into this dorm in federal prison, there's just the openness of these telephones. And there was 6 phones at Taft Camp, which is now closed when you walk in. 3 phones and 3 phones right as you go through these big doors. November 19th, 2008 was the date I got my release date, May 20th, 2009. So I'm super excited, of course, that I'm going to be released from prison, and you're able to call cell phones from prison. So I remember talking really loudly on the phone, like when I'd call, like, hey, yeah, great news. Got my release date, coming home, working on a book with Santos. We're going to do a big book tour. No one actually knows about the book or has invited me to actually go on a book tour, but we're going to make it happen. Yeah, I'm writing this blog. I don't know if anyone's reading it, but it's going to help me be a consultant when I come home. No one's hiring me yet or offering me any money, but it's super exciting. I'm going to be home in 6 months. So excited. Back in my own bed, my own toilet. Chicks, I'm going to date. It's going to be freaking awesome. I run 10 miles a day. Love you, miss you, talk to you soon. So that's how some of my calls would go. Like a total fool, speaking loudly, showing off. I'm just excited. I got my release date. I want to call home. So dumb, so stupid, so... Is unsympathetic a word? Unaware, lacking any awareness of the people around me who have many years to serve on their sentence, who weren't serving a measly year in prison like I was, who didn't have the opportunity to work alongside Michael Santos to write a blog and a book, who might not have had the support that I had, a home to return to, a potential career to return to. If I didn't go into speaking and consulting, I could have returned to a very lucrative real estate practice. I chose to do this. I still do, despite myriad opportunities. I should have shut up. And thankfully, a long-term prisoner called me into his cubicle one day and he's like, dude, you work hard. We respect you. You don't bitch. You don't complain. You don't talk to the guards. Shut the F up on the phone. Don't nobody care when you're going home. Stop talking so loudly. And I'm like, I get it. Thank you for speaking honestly to me. Thank you for telling me the truth. You're absolutely right. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed that I was yelling into the phone around my excitement, not knowing that all the dudes down the hall can listen. Be better than me. It was dumb. It was stupid. I'm very grateful to the long-term prisoner didn't lambast me or crush me or criticize me in front of fellow prisoners, but rather said, hey, we respect what you're doing here. Shut up. Totally get it. Fourth thing, offering unsolicited advice. Now, it's a very touchy issue because sometimes you think you have formed friendships in prison. And there was an instance where I offered a piece of advice to someone I thought was a friend who had been in prison for many years. We were involved in an exercise class with my friend Andrew Alchek. And I gave him some advice that basically said, dude, that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Let me tell you why. He didn't appreciate it. He found it off-putting. I think I told him what he already knew, but I think having that dream upon his release from prison kept him going in custody, which in itself is a very good thing because he had endured things I'd never seen in life. So it was dumb to offer unsolicited advice. I want you to be very cautious about offering unsolicited advice. Another very dumb thing I did, and this may be the most severe or serious. This is a really big deal. I'm a light sleeper, and I was a light sleeper in prison. It didn't help when I surrendered. You have these lights above you and the noise, the lockers, the banging, the people clipping their toenails, the yelling, the cooking, coming in and out of the TV room. I am a light sleeper now, and I certainly was in prison. And I had a bout of insomnia. It was brutal. So one day, a prisoner came up to me and said, dude, you look like a zombie. I'm like, I appreciate that. I haven't slept in 4 days. He's like, take this pill. It will help you sleep. Now, this guy was a friend. And I trusted him. And he gave me this pill, and I took it. And I was out cold, man. I mean, like, knocked me out. Gone. Took it at like 7:30. I woke up. Someone had to wake me up the next morning. They might have thought that I was dead. I've never really taken medications to begin with. It ain't my thing. I'm reluctant to take a Tylenol when I'm hurt. So it's just not my thing. So this pill put me to next week. Now, I didn't get in trouble. This prisoner didn't go to staff and say, this guy took a pill. And had I been drug tested, they'd have shown the pill in my system. It wasn't on the approved out list or medical list. I would have been written up for a violation. That is a significant disciplinary infraction. The point for all of you is it wasn't on my approved pill list. I didn't take medications. And had someone turned me in, including this prisoner, it would have been a write-up. I'd have gone to the hole. Could have been a new charge. Probably not. But it would have been a severe disciplinary infraction for taking medication that was not prescribed. I didn't think about it. I was kind of vulnerable. I gave him money as a thank you. I had a buddy of mine send him in $50 as a thank you, which he appreciated. That's another dumb thing I did, having money go to other people's books from time to time. That was not on a list when I decided to film this video. Be very careful. You can borrow Diet Coke. You can borrow granola. You can borrow some powdered milk. You can borrow some coffee. Do not take medications because if you get drug tested, which I did twice in federal prison, you're going to fail. Terrible advice. Another really dumb thing I did in federal prison one time, once, was changing my cubicle. So you stand for count at 10:30 in the morning. I would get all my runs in before count. So I'd maybe run like a lot. I ran a lot in prison. I went in a fat slob and I became addicted to running. I still am to this day, if my hips allow it. So one day it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm back in my cubicle. I'm sweating like an animal. I get naked. I quickly change into some clothes before the standing count at 10:30 because I was too lazy, despite running 10 miles, I was too lazy to walk to the shower stall to change, which is where all of you should change. So, of course, right as I'm changing, my bunkie walks in and he gave me a look, and I didn't say I'm sorry because I should have known better. I'd been in prison for a little while, but it was uncomfortable. It was a mistake. It was a dumb thing to do because I was too lazy and stupid and dumb to walk 40 yards to the shower stall to change. Never get naked in your cubicle. Never change in your cubicle. Take the clothes, walk to the shower stall, open the door, close it, hang your clothes on the other side, get dressed, and leave. I'm dumb. Learn from me. Another dumb thing I did, and this is what got my dad really laughing because it happened when I was with my dad. I would use the visiting restroom in visitation. So when you're in visitation, there's going to be like an inmate restroom. Okay. Then there's going to be a visitor's restroom. For the first 3 months of my visit, you have to go to the bathroom. You walk to the bathroom. For some reason, I continued to use the visiting restroom instead of the inmate restroom. So after about 2 months, this big guard that had about 9 teeth, 80% of his body tattooed, I don't think he brushed his teeth in the 6 months that I'd been in prison, but that's a different conversation. I wanted to subtly refer him to my dentist, Dr. Lewis in Sherman Oaks. I don't think that would have gone well, so I didn't offer that advice. But when he breathed on me and offered me a suggestion, he tapped my shoulder and said politely, don't I'll never forget it because the breath could have killed. I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, he was married too. How could his wife stand that breath? I'm very finicky about that breath and hygiene. That was a concern for me when I went to prison. But everything turned out to be okay. He said, did you get a commutation or pardon? I said, no, but that sounds fantastic. How do I go about that? He said, I don't know, but you don't have your sentence hasn't been commuted, and you haven't been pardoned, and you're still in prison. So stop using the visiting restroom. Use the inmate restroom. I said, got it. I understand. And part of the reason, of course, you have to use the inmate restroom is because that's for the inmates. And if you go to the visiting restroom, that's where contraband, that's where hustling could take place. A wife or visitor could leave something bad or something inappropriate or something wrong, drugs, food, pills, whatever, in there. The inmate can go in and get it, and you have a whole bad thing. Hence the reason you have an inmate restroom. So that was a dumb thing I did in visitation, walking into the visitation restroom. Another thing I did was not checking the call-out list consistently enough. So all of you, when you surrender to prison, there's going to be a call-out list every single day. Get in the habit every day of checking to see if your name is on the call-out list. One day, about 6 months into my prison term, I'd gotten to this pattern of not checking the call-out list because there was no need for me to check it. My name wasn't going to be on there anymore. I wasn't on pre-release. I didn't have a team meeting. I got into this habit of not checking it. But apparently one day, someone who had read my blog decided to send me a book, which I appreciated, but the book had a spiral in it. So because it had a spiral, which is a no-no, it went to the mailroom. They paged me to the mailroom. I'm running with headphones on. They paged me once, they paged me twice. I don't hear it. I'm running at 9:30 in the morning. Paged me a third and fourth time. I'm running by myself. People didn't see that I was out on the track. So finally, at about 10 o'clock, a prisoner with whom I worked in the kitchen said, dude, they're about to close the compound. They think you have freaking escaped. They paged you incessantly. Get your ass to the mailroom. And I said, oh, I should have checked the call out because the prior day it asked me to go there the next day to get the book. I then got the book. I removed the spiral, tried to tape it together. I eventually read the book, but I was off-putting to prisoners when they threatened to close the compound. The point, get in the habit of checking the call-out list every day. Another dumb thing I did in visitation, only did it for like the first 3 months. I've said in some of my videos I had an addiction to chewing tobacco, playing baseball through college into my 20s. Look, I like it. If I wasn't so concerned about my teeth and cancer, I chew tobacco, Red Man in Copenhagen, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I love it. I could swallow it. Nothing happens. So about 2 months into my prison term, my friend Brad Fulmer, the baseball player, surrendered, smuggled in some tobacco. I chewed it during visitation, ruined the visitation because I was so concerned I was going to get caught. About 30 minutes in, I swallowed all of the tobacco to swallow and erase the evidence. Unfortunately, I've chewed enough tobacco in my life where swallowing it had no impact on me. Very dumb. Again, that's contraband. That is not something that you should do. Don't do anything dumb and stupid like that. If you're just joining and watching this video, I'm talking about all the dumb things I did in federal prison with the hope that you won't do dumb things and you will do better. Okay, another dumb thing I did. In Lessons from Prison, I wrote about some imbecile questioning the existence of the Holocaust. Let's just call him what he is. He's a white supremacist. And in the book we wrote, he said, I'm not questioning that the Holocaust existed. I'm just questioning to what extent. And I remember putting on my boots, walking out of the kitchen and going to share the story with Michael Santos, and we put it in Lessons from Prison. Well, the downside was Lessons from Prison was released the month that I was released from prison, but Michael still had time to serve. And the book made its way around the federal prison. In fact, the book is probably in every federal prison in the country, at least every lower camp. That much I can tell you. And that prisoner came across the book, knew that I was referencing a bald man with a ponytail who weighed about 380 and who had a lightning bolt tattoo. Of course, emblematic of someone who is, a white supremacist, scum, trash, filth. And he didn't appreciate what I wrote, but it created some conflict for some people with whom I served time. Not Michael, because Michael had been inside 22 years. He did 8 years in the penitentiary. There's nothing Michael couldn't overcome in prison. But I think some people with whom I associated who were still in prison got some grief because about what I wrote in the book, even though I didn't mention the prisoner's name. So in retrospect, what I should have done, even not written it, or better understood the consequences that could follow, like this guy getting out of jail, finding me down, tracking me down, and killing me for writing that he's a pig and white supremacist who questions the existence of the Holocaust. Filth and scum, which is exactly what he is. So that, in retrospect, I should not have done that. I should have been more careful with my words, because even though I left, it created some heartache for people with whom I served time. Another dumb thing I did. The healthcare in prison is abhorrent. It's tragic. It's sickening. And if you get hurt, you'll never quite be the same. I developed a significant hernia in prison. Like, I had a surgery when I came home. But I developed a hernia in prison. I had to stop running, but I was so conditioned to run in prison, and we wrote a blog about this, several of them. I continued to run despite this injury through such pain and aggravation. 8, 10, 12 miles with such pain. I was just so conditioned to run. It takes discipline some days to not exercise. It takes discipline to rest your body. So it was dumb that despite this hernia that was massive and huge, pain I still have till this day, especially when my 3-year-old son thinks it's fun to jump on me, I probably made matters worse because I didn't stop. I didn't say, I'm going to take some time off. I got 8 weeks until I go home. Just walk the track, do something different. Instead, I kept running. That was dumb. It was stupid, and to the detriment of my health. I was just so conditioned to running every single morning. Just a few more things I'm going to cover in this video. And again, I hope you're finding value in it. Then I'm going to wrap up with some books that I'm reading. Another dumb thing I did, and be honest if you're watching this video. Don't lie. Own it. How many of you use the restroom and may not wash your hands when you're done? Okay. So I'm in my home office right now. My bathroom is about 12 feet away from here. The restroom is right there. Every time you use the bathroom, every time I use the bathroom, even here, do you wash your hands? Not always. Okay. And every now and again in prison, when I was running late or I had to get back to my cubicle for count, I may use the restroom and forget to wash my hands. It happens. It's embarrassing. I got to own it. It's dumb. Well, a long-term prisoner who lambasted me for talking too loudly on the phone called me aside one time and said, "Hey, homie." And that's when you know it's going wrong, when this guy opens up the conversation with, "Hey, homie." Then you would begin to compliment me. You know when someone compliments you at first, the criticism is coming. It's like, I think my kids have already figured that out when I start to compliment my kids. They know there could be some criticism coming. So he's like, "Hey, you do a lot of good things. You do your job. You're not a problem maker. You kind of adjust. You do your own thing. You lay low. You hang out with Santos. You share the food. You're a good dude. We get it. You're teaching this class on the stock market, and I learned what dividend stocks are, and I'm thinking about buying some shares in Coca-Cola and Merck Pharmaceutical. This case is really great." And I'm like, "Hey, bud, I've been in jail for about 8 months now. You can just get to the point. Where did I F up?" And he's like, "Homie, you just unwashed your hand. You just used the restroom. You didn't wash your hands, and you touched the handle of the phone of the TV room. You think that's cool, dog? It's not cool. It's a mistake. I should never. My bad. No excuse. I got nothing to say. I did it. I'm wrong. I'm sorry." He said, "Good. Don't let it happen again. Tip for all of you: if you use the restroom, wash your hands, especially in prison when you're then going to touch the phone or door to the TV room. It was so cool the way these guys handled it when I made really dumb mistakes. I think by virtue of my adjustment and generally not complaining, ironically, I'm going to talk about complaining next. When I say I'm not going to talk about complaining, that generally means complaining is coming. But it was cool the way they handled it with just, kind of taking it easy on me, because I just think they saw that I was trying to do the right thing, but I do some dumb things. Two more things. One thing I did that was wrong initially upon my surrender to prison was complain about the length of my sentence. So dumb. I served an 18-month sentence, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, relatively speaking, relative to how long people serve time in prison, is a blip, right? There were guys that said, man, Paperny, you treat this like a country club, big boy timeout, a fat farm to rebuild and prepare for the next experience in your life. This is a good thing for you. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. This is kind of a chance to reboot. This is a good thing for me. I needed this. And they knew that. And I knew that. And my business partner, Michael Santos, knew that. And it was not just Michael, but others who said, shut up, man, complaining about serving 18 months. It feels like an eternity to you, and maybe it is. But relative to what some guys get here for nonviolent crimes, for not using their tongue as a weapon to steal and exploit as you did, shut up. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I've learned when I did dumb things and people that respected me told me, I didn't get defensive. I'm like, mind your own business. 18 months for me is a long time. My co-defendant didn't even get indicted, my partner at UBS, and he's still managing money, and he just took a private jet, with Mike Piazza and Barry Bonds and Alex Rodriguez, and he's managing their money, and I should be there making money with him, and this is a travesty, and the government overreached, and I didn't have bad intent, and I didn't expect to end up here. Things I have felt in my mind. I didn't say that. Instead, I told the truth. You're right. I have nothing to complain about. I'm so fortunate. I'm so blessed. I appreciate you telling me the truth. And I appreciate it. And the way I responded to it, rather than getting defensive but owning it, I think showed that I was accountable, that I was being honest, and that they were right. I mean, to be a leader, you got to acknowledge when somebody is right. They were right. It was dumb to complain about the length of my sentence. Don't complain about the length of your sentence. Embrace the stoical approach that it could always be worse. And I'm going to get into that in one of the books here in a moment. Last but not least, a dumb thing I did in prison. I got caught eating kosher food. Now, although I'm Jewish, I did not eat the kosher menu because it was limited, and I've never been kosher. There's this funny myth in prison that if you eat kosher food, they're going to release you earlier because the kosher food is more expensive and they don't want to fund it. It's this whole racket. It's very funny. It's not true, of course, but it's very funny. But one day, about 11 months into my prison term, a friend of mine got his kosher meal, and it was like fresh fruits and vegetables. In fact, a raw onion I took a bite of. I thought I was going to pass out and die because I hadn't had fresh food like that in like 11 months. I took a bite of the onion. There was a pepper there. It was a kosher meal. I ate it. I was hungry. A staff member, a guard, some useless guard about 5'3", 420 who worked in the kitchen, who was rude and mean and made fun of other prisoners and tried to send people to the shoe, who would search everyone when they would leave the chow hall looking for contraband to send them to the hole. This guy was real trash. He should not have been a correctional officer. That much I can tell you. He saw me take a bite of the onion. He called over and he said, Paperny. I didn't correct him and say it's Paperny. He said, I don't see your name on the kosher menu. I said, it isn't. And he said, I just saw you took a bite of the onion. And I didn't say anything. I just kind of sat there and was waiting for him to say something. So trivial, right? Big deal. Big deal. But rather than argue it or get defensive, I just said, nothing. And he said, I don't see your name on the kosher menu. Don't ever do it again. If you do, I'm going to write you up. I said, fine. And I left. So that wraps up dumb things I did in federal prison. I hope you've learned from it. Now I'm going to wrap up quickly with some books you need to read. A client of mine read this book and sent me a copy called The Greatest Salesman in the World. It's super awesome. I encourage you to read it. This is a book called Lessons from Prison you can still get for free. You see how I'm still peddling the book 12 years later? It still works. The lessons still apply. All you have to do is read it. I'm reading this book. It's awesome. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. And even though a few moments ago I mentioned that I shouldn't complain about the length of my sentence, or nor should you, it doesn't change that there's trauma associated with this experience. It doesn't change that this is very hard. And in fact, on the first page of this book, he writes, but traumatic experiences do leave traces, whether on a large scale or close to home, on our families with dark secrets being passed down through generations. I don't want to minimize if you're going away for a week, a month, a year, 2 years, or 5 years. It's a very long time. I just don't want you to complain about it. There's a very good book, Understanding How We Get Here, the trauma we all face, and overcoming it. Another book, a friend of mine, her name is Nicole Sanchez. She wrote this great book called 17 Undeniable Traits of Leadership in the Construction Industry. She's a female entrepreneur. She's awesome. She's a hustler. She's smart. And despite having a family and a baby, she said, I'm going to write a book. And she did it. That's a good message for all of you that I learned from my business partner, Michael Santos, who says frequently till this day, if you're going to say you're going to do something, you do it. She said she was going to write a book. She did it. It's awesome. You should read it, even if you're not in construction. And last but not least, Lives of the Stoics. I've read a lot of books by Ryan Holiday. He runs the Daily Stoic. His brand has blown up. All of his books are awesome. This book is really good. And the main takeaway I've learned from Stoics and what could help all of you going to prison is it could always be worse. Be appreciative for what you have. And another dumb thing I did before I went to prison was focus on what I've lost, the money, the reputation, the shame I brought to my family, rather than recognizing and appreciating what I have left. So embracing Stoicism and reading books like Lives of the Stoics helps me recognize it can be worse and helps me focus on what I have and helps me not complain and appreciate every day the struggle, the trauma at times of going through this experience, but waking up and trying to do it again, trying to be better and expressing appreciation and just knowing, as written in the epilogue of Lessons from Prison, more to come, more to come. How are you going to handle it? How are you going to respond? I want you to respond well, and I want you to have a productive, phenomenal experience. And I'm so grateful you allow our team to come into your home to educate and inform you on what to do, and in this case, what not to do. Subscribe to this video if you found value. Thank you so much for watching. I will return more with helpful content soon. Goodbye.